Hey, Rick Neuenhoven here once again, and today we're going to be talking about what to look for in a home loan outside of the interest rate. I'm sure all of you know an interest rate and what it is, because we are just bombarded with advertising about the lowest rates possible. However, what we don't think about is the functionality of a loan. And yes, obviously, the lower the rate, the more savings we can get in the first instance. But it doesn't necessarily mean over the long term it's going to save us money. One thing that affects interest rates are the fees and charges that the banks impose on us with the loan as well. For example, an annual fee. So when you factor in an annual fee into the loan, right, it actually increases what the actual real rate is for that loan product. So what we need to look at with an interest rate is also the comparison rate. That is the real rate of that loan, including fees and charges and future rates. The other thing we need to factor into with the functionality of the loan and the low interest rate is, are we actually going to be able to get that interest rate that's advertised? So I've seen interest rates advertised recently, especially on social media, get a home loan for as low as 3.73%, for example. However, when you go into the terms and conditions, it tells you that you can't buy land with it, you can't do building with it, and you need to have a loan to value ratio less than 70%. So if you're above that, that rate won't apply. So sometimes we need to go with the theory of, if it looks too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. But if you do fit that category, it's fantastic. So when I'm talking about functionality on a home loan, however, and why it's important, we need to factor in the different types of functionality, whether we go principal interest, whether we go interest only, whether we go interest only with an offset account and a credit card linked to it, or whether we fix a loan. Now, they're all separate decisions that we need to make in the process, and they all have differing effects. So to give you an example, one bank's advertising a low rate, but it's on a fixed loan. Now, the problem can be that some banks, if you fix a loan, and you can go up to normally a 5-year period, so 1 to 5 years, when you fix a loan with certain banks, they will not allow you to make additional repayments. So therefore, what happens is you've got to accept that you're happy not to be building equity outside of capital growth in that property for that period of time that it's fixed. So you can lose some of the functionality in that loan product, because it's fundamentally important for us to actually pay the loan down as quickly as possible, so we're actually paying less interest. Okay, so there's no point having a 4% home loan when really we're paying maximum interest for 5 years, when if we were with another loan which allowed us to make additional repayments because we have the capacity to do so, we might actually be saving interest overall. Then we have to factor in offset accounts compared to principal interest. So as you'd see in the media, ASIC, for example, are putting a real emphasis on owner-occupiers not having interest-only loans and wanting principal interest loans. Now, if you do a 30-year loan principal interest, if you check the calculators online, what you'll find is that for the first 5 years, unless you make additional repayments, the principal component of that loan being reduced is quite minimal and sometimes zero, depending on the interest rate and the loan and everything else. So again, I can't stress enough, yes, we look at interest rates and we think interest rates, the lower the better, but we also need to take into account functionality and what we want the loan to do to us. That is the most important thing we need to think about, and then the interest rate will take care of itself.